Welcome to another edition of the Magic Latest Podcast, the podcast where we discuss everything Orlando Magic basketball. I'm your host, Jalon Dixon, and today we've got a couple of things to get into. But before we get started, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for daily Orlando Magic content. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers and trying to become one of the biggest Orlando Magic podcasts here on the YouTube platform. So remember to hit that post notification bell so you always know when we're dropping new videos. If you're watching the videos and you haven't hit subscribe yet, you got to tell me what you don't like. At least in the comment section, at least tell me what you don't like so I can fix it. Because you got to hit subscribe, bro. But with that all being said, let's go ahead and get right into today's episode. Relatively tame episode. Not a lot of crazy news. Nothing super outlandish surrounding the Orlando Magic. It's good vibes in Orlando right now. Coming back to the crib. Face the San Antonio Spurs. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Everything is kind of fine and dandy in Orlando Magic Town. And honestly, the news around the Orlando Magic is starting to get much more positive as well. Specifically for one, Paolo Banchero. And the news says for Banchero, it will be his 10th consecutive absence with a left groin strain in the game against the San Antonio Spurs that he will likely miss based off of where he's listed. The plan is for him to ramp up towards a full contact workout before his return. And Coach Jamal Mosley told reporters that the team being back home this week is important as it allows the Magic to continue to monitor his day-to-day progress closely without travel being involved. Banchero has been receiving treatment and putting in non-contact work, but hasn't played since limping off of the court in the second quarter of the 124-107 win in New York on November 12th. Ironically, the Magic returned to Madison Square Garden on December 7th, but he's not fully healthy enough to travel and doesn't participate in if he's not fully healthy enough to travel and doesn't participate in Friday's game against the visiting Miami Heat on Friday, Banchero's return could very well come during the team's NBA Cup quarterfinal on December 9th, which will also be held at the Kia Center. So important news right there, right? Because the ideal situation, as mentioned in the article, is Paolo misses the game against San Antonio, comes back in the first matchup against the Miami Heat on Friday, travels with the team, maybe plays the game, but in limited minutes against the New York Knicks on the road. And then when they return home against the Miami Heat for the quarterfinals of the NBA Cup game, that is when we get to see hopefully the full version of Paolo Banchero back with a decent minute count and, fully engaged with the starting lineup as things once were. Now, your take in the comment section down below about how they should go about handling this is going to be very interesting. I know a lot of people are very split. Some of us look at it as Paolo Banchero is your best player, and when he comes back, that fulfills a role that you have desperately been missing. At the end of the day, Franz Wagner being your number one player, there's nothing wrong with that. Desmond Bane stepping up and Anthony Black, who's been a godsend with the way that he's been able to improve so far this season, all things that have really helped during this stretch without Paolo. But on the other end, he is an all-star for a reason. He is a takeover caliber player, and he's a guy in a half-court setting that can be extremely, extremely dangerous, especially in a game like the NBA Cup quarterfinal where the stakes are as high as they are, right? On the other end, you'd say you really want to go into the NBA Cup with a completely different philosophy now, trying to reintegrate a player who's missed the last handful of games during this momentum shift that you guys have had. Do you really want to upset the apple cart? You can't fix what ain't broken, right? And right now, the team that got you this far is the team that didn't have Paolo Banchero on the floor. Mixed bag. So I really want to hear in the comment section down below what you guys think as in regards to how they should play this. Do you just let Paolo rest it through, right? He rests through this week. He even rests through the East quarterfinal, because after the East quarterfinal, by the way, they faced the Nuggets, the Jazz, the Warriors, and the Blazers all on the road. 4-game road trip before coming back for 2 straight against the Charlotte Hornets and then the Nuggets again. So it's kind of like one of those things where Paolo, if he's not ready by the NBA Cup game, he's likely not going to play again until likely the home return after Christmas. is what we're looking at. Because if he's not ready by the NBA Cup game at home, he's definitely not going to play in one of these road games, especially when two of them are teams looking to play with real contention in the Western Conference. It's highly unlikely. So would you rather get Paolo Banchero in time for the quarterfinal, knowing that he's healthy and ready to go at that point? Or do you think it would be best to hold him back even further than that and let him recover himself all the way up until after the Christmas Day games? Interesting little nugget of information right there. Like I said, it's going to be one of those things that I'm going to really want to gauge the comment section from you guys, because this is a polarizing topic. Paulo Banchero in his own right is somebody that's heavily discussed amongst like Orlando Magic fans, but the way this team looks with him versus the way they look without him has been one of the most like potent convos on the internet as far as the NBA right now. Like it's been crazy. Next up, speaking of Paulo Banchero's on and off stuff, we have to talk about the Orlando Magic in terms of reintegrating him. And I wasn't really sure if I was going to do this as a topic initially, but then I saw an article that kind of doubled down on something that I was thinking beforehand. And the point of this subject was, based off of his injury concerns and when he would come back, how soon he would come back, things of that nature, how would the Orlando Magic go about bringing him into the world that now is their play style they've been thriving within while he's been gone? And the Orlando Magic Daily, shout out to those guys. We talk about them pretty much every podcast or every other podcast. They do great work over there. Always should click on and read their articles personally. They did a whole write-up on why Paulo Banchero gets blamed for the offensive struggles of the Orlando Magic a lot more than he deserves to be. And there's a particular section that I think really stood out to me, and it was under the section of this article that says Paulo Banchero has taken undeserved criticism for Orlando's troubles. It says, if you've watched Orlando closely during this current era, you have seen how so many of Banchero's touches have historically come with the defense already set. The guys on the floor around him are rarely cutting or creating any kind of backside actions or misdirection to free him up. Often, he's getting a touch 8 or 9 seconds into the possession where he gets forced into a late clock situation that's just a nightmare to handle effectively. Even the best offensive players are going to come up empty in those situations when help defense is ready to come over and the lane is collapsing. It's not a matter of Paulo Banchero being a flawed scorer. It's just the way the Magic offense has operated. And I think that comes to a more important topic, right? And I did some digging on this to make sure that we understood in full how important this next thing I'm about to say is, which is the Orlando Magic need to learn how to move the ball more often. They need to learn how to move the ball more frequently, and they need to learn how to put themselves in position to really create ball movement that actually makes the defense work, right? I think one of the most important things that they've been able to accomplish with this up-tempo play style is that it's forced these guys to have to learn how to make more rapid fire decisions. Again, as the article mentioned, it's a lot of situations where it feels like everything's very delayed. It feels like everything is under a set defense where guys are able to schematically position themselves to cut off passing lanes, to double team Paulo in the low post, different things like that, where it now makes it where you have to be even more of a cerebral player, because that's truly what operating in the half court is, right? That's what makes postseason basketball so different from the regular season. Is in the postseason, when the game slows down, things get more physical, your ability to read offenses and defense become that much more important. This is a did you study film aspect, right? And even then, your athletic ability, your overall talent as a passer or shooter, scorer in general, all are impacted by this new environment in which everything is slower. You're able to see the full floor for what it is and things of that nature. So especially for a young team like this, the lack of ball movement and the lack of off-ball movement is so tough in terms of being able to ingratiate a guy like Paulo Banchero, who absolutely does need the touches, but he's very similar to someone like Jason Tatum that I've said in the past, and I think I've said this on the podcast, and I think I've said it about Paulo specifically when I think I did an episode where he dropped one of his first episodes on his YouTube channel about his off-season workout coming into the NBA season. And I remember I did this whole breakdown on him about the 3 things that I wanted to see him improve this season in terms of being able to become a more efficient scorer for the Orlando Magic, because that obviously was and is the biggest knock on him. And one of them was making quicker decisions with the basketball, but part of that is also getting the ball to him quicker in these actions so that he's able to make more decisive decisions. Did you know that even with Paolo Banchero out over this stretch, the Orlando Magic ranked 23rd in assists per game with just over 25. They ranked 23rd, which is behind teams like the Washington Wizards, the Houston Rockets, the Charlotte Hornets, and this is one that really intrigued me. I was very surprised by this. And the Los Angeles Lakers. And the reason why that one surprised me so much is because at the end of the day, yes, Luka Doncic is a very high-level passer. Yes, at one point, Austin Reeves was leading the NBA in assists. But you have to remember that, especially bringing LeBron James back, you're talking about players that are very isocentric, specifically Luka, and also to a certain degree Austin Reeves. And it's not like they have a lot of high-level three-point shooting around them either. To put it in context, the Lakers are 20th in three-point percentage this season, and as far as three-point attempts are concerned, they are 24th. So this is not a team that has a bunch of spray-out shooters, knock down guys in the mid-range area. This isn't a team that, especially with DeAndre Ayton out of the lineup, this isn't even a team that has a consistent lob threat throughout the course of the entirety of the season. Now, DeAndre Ayton, when he's been healthy, has been solid, but nonetheless, he's really their only fully competent center because Jackson Hayes is still TBD, right? So that's a long-winded way of saying that even without Paolo Banchero, this team still doesn't even move the ball around enough to really create the level of mismatches that it has the ability to when you have a Franz, a Desmond Bane, a Anthony Black, Tristan da Silva. You have these guys who have the ability to dribble pass, shoot at a high capacity, yet there's still almost a lot of isolation ball and a lot of scrappy play. It's a lot of this team. The best way to summarize it, and I think a lot of you guys will agree with me if you watch the games, and I'm not trying to judge my ball watchers for this one, but real ball knowledge, if you watch the game, I think a lot of people would say Paolo Banchero on the floor, Paolo Banchero off the floor. I would say that the Magic play very difficult basketball. What do I mean by that? This is a team that I feel like it struggles very mightily to just get easy looks at the basket. And I think that's part of the reason why they've put so much emphasis on trying to play more up-tempo basketball is because I think it's why it hurt them so much in the beginning of the season trying to play that style without the defensive component being at the forefront of it, right? Is you can see them trying to create the action earlier in the shot clock to try to generate some kind of movement. But on the other side of it, because this team isn't swinging the ball around enough, because it's one thing to rush the ball up the court and get it past half court within the first 3 seconds of the shot clock, sure. But this team isn't moving the ball enough. They're moving bodies, but they're not moving the ball enough to create the mismatches, to create the diversions, to create the backdoor cuts and open opportunities off of pin downs for a pop out for your bigs like Goga Batazde, or for even like a Jonathan Isaac when he's on the floor. If you're gonna have him pop out to the 3-point line, create an action that actually makes him a threat to shoot from back there, not something where you're not afraid to tag and then he pops out to the 3-point line, no one's there, and yet you can't safely trust him too, because once that big slides, he misses the 3 or he puts the ball on the deck, fumbles it, the whole shenanigans, right? Like there's a lot of different situations where the lack of really moving the ball around has really humbled this offense in a way where it's hilarious. This team has scored 125 points 7 times this year. They only did 3 times last season. I talked about that last podcast. Yet there's still a level that this team can get to. Not just adding Paolo back, but also adding another ball moving element. I think that's why we've talked so much on this podcast about the idea of them trying to get a point guard that can really facilitate. which is why I really wish that Tyus Jones would be like the guy we thought he was going to be, or at least the guy I thought he was going to be when the Orlando Magic signed him. And he's had struts of greatness as a facilitator as of late. He's had a couple of, 5-6 assist games as of late. So he's picking up there. The shooting is not coming along as much, but the moving of the ball is coming along. For this team to take the next step, especially when you get Paolo Banchero back, they have to learn to move the ball around more. You're already a team that's one of the lowest as far as three-point attempts per game. Quite frankly, they're fifth lowest of anyone in the NBA. Fifth lowest. So this is a team that is already not generating a lot of three-point shots. One way to do that alone, one way to because this isn't even talking about makes. This is about attempts per game. This is a team that needs to see the ball move more. Dribbling into traffic. I'm not as mad about attacking the paint. I've told you guys a million times on the podcast that I believe that the most dangerous aspect of the Orlando Magic is their ability to get paint touches. I think it's one of the most effective aspects of the Orlando Magic, and I think it's the most effective way to play basketball is to at least within the first 10 seconds of the shot clock find a way to get a touch in the paint, even if it does not lead to a shot attempt in that touch, right? Paolo Banchero, I think, is one of those guys, especially with how active I think he can be on ball in terms of what he does with that very first step, that very first move when he gets the ball in his hands. If this team can learn to move the ball and exploit those different mismatches earlier in the shot clock, that'll be an easy way to get Paolo back ramped up. It'll also be a way to kind of make the offense just a little smoother, so that they don't feel like they're just playing such difficult basketball. They play such a roughhousing brand of basketball, very much hard-nosed. Yes, batter the backboard and, attack the paint, things like that. But there's not a lot of times when you watch this Orlando Magic team that they're getting a lot of easy shot attempts that's not in transition. And I think they need to get a little bit better with that. Some of that has to do with Coach Mosley. Some of that has to do with Coach Mosley drawing it up. Because sometimes you gotta be able to draw up a sideline out of bounds play that just gets a bucket on the board to kind of get things back in the fray, right? Sometimes you just gotta have that in your bag. But on the other side, the guys gotta learn to be able to move the rock a little bit more. I think that's gonna be super important. Next up, Magic play the Spurs. I don't have a whole lot on this one. I'm gonna be honest with you. What I know is the Magic are favored by 6.5. What I know is that Victor Wembanyama will not be playing. Neither will Stephon Castle. Dylan Harper is healthy. But Justin Champagne, he's likely going to start at the 2. De'Aaron Fox is the guy. And the guy that you have to attack in this game is Luke Cornett. This team, talking about the Orlando Magic, averages about 60 points in the paint per game. That's your bread and butter. Luke Cornett's done a really good job of protecting the paint at the starting center position in place of Victor Wembanyama being injured. But now you have to test his mettle. For this Orlando Magic team, with the way they thrive playing basketball, you have to test his mettle. You cannot fall into the belief of if it was Victor Wembanyama, we're going to start settling for threes. Even if Vic was playing, test his mettle. But because it's Luke Cornett, I think there's clearly tiers to shot blocking, right? And Luke Cornett, although is a above average shot blocker in this league, he's not a Victor Wembanyama level shot blocker. So you have to test. Like I said, you have to test his mettle. Test Luke Cornett as a shot blocker. We know what he's capable of. We've seen it. I'm not going to, for my Spurs fans, I'm not going to discount what Luke Cornett has been able to do in Victor Wembanyama's stead as a defensive anchor for this team. I'm just saying that the Orlando Magic's bread and butter is getting to the basket. And you don't settle for shooting more taking more three-point attempts because Luke Cornett is down there. At least with Victor Wembanyama, if you're game planning with him at the forefront of your game plan to attack those defenses, you understand why. Because just as much as he can punish you on the defensive end, he can also take that block coast to coast and go punish you on the offensive end. We've seen it. But for Luke Cornett, test that middle a little bit and see what's going on with him. Like I said, the Orlando Magic are averaging about 60 points in the paint this season. And I don't think Luke Cornett should be the reason that you don't continue to lean into that. Defensively, as the Orlando Magic, defensively now, the key to all of this, and it's going to sound really crazy, but there's two guys that obviously you have to focus on. Same way as I did with the Chicago Bulls. When I said Josh Giddey and I said Nikola Vucevic, the two guys that you have to focus on is obviously, number one, De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox, for obvious reasons, his ability to push the tempo, his ability to be able to get you in transition, especially his ability to operate in defense when playing zone, poking out the ball, being able to catch passing lanes, and once he gets in transition, I mean, beat, road runner. He's very dangerous on the open floor. The second guy, and it's going to sound a little weird because most would expect it to be Dylan Harper, but the guy that I'm going to say to watch out for, be careful of, is Harrison Barnes. Now, I know I've told you guys on the podcast I have a little bit of a man crush on Harrison Barnes. He went to North Carolina. He was one of my favorite prospects coming out of that draft class. He's a model of consistency, so on and so forth, right? Yeah. So y'all know I got a little bit of a thing for Harrison Barnes, but on the same front, there's a model of consistency that comes attached with Harrison Barnes. There's a guy who he sleepwalks into anywhere between 14 and 18 points a game. There's somebody that's very, very rooted in just kind of making sure that his presence is felt in the game, even if it's not loud, right? And especially his three-point spacing ability, I think is something that gets slept on. And I think Harrison Barnes is one of those guys that when he does get hot, that's a guy you want to be very weary of. A guy that I think is very similar to Harrison Barnes, but I think about a tier above him, especially from an athletic standpoint, what he's able to bring to the defensive end. But I think Harrison Barnes, at this stage in his career, is a very like watered down version of like what you get out of an Andrew Wiggins, for example, right? Like Andrew Wiggins, to me, you know you're gonna get 15 to 18 points a night, and then you're going to get above average to elite level defense. And you know you're going to get that on a regular basis. And what you don't get in defense from Harrison Barnes, you get in three-point shooting, or at least, if not three-point shooting in terms of percentages sometimes, it's at least the threat as a knockdown three-point shooter, because he is I think he is shooting like anywhere between 36 and 37% for his career as a three-point shooter. I don't want to be misquoted on that, so let me make sure that I watch myself. Career three-point shooter. Well, he's shot 39% most of his career, but for this season in particular, he is shooting 44% from beyond the arc on nearly 6 attempts per game. And he is a 38.6% three-point shooter. Y'all just saw that live on the podcast, by the way. Like, that wasn't a theory, but we double-checked it live on the podcast just for clarity's sake. 38.6% three-point shooter. He has shot in this order 44% this season, 43% the season prior, 38 the season before that, 37, 39, 39, 38. Seems like a guy you might have to be wary of, especially because the Orlando Magic's bread and butter throughout this time frame has been shutting off the three-point line. We've talked about that on the podcast plenty of times as well, is the Orlando Magic's best attribute defensively has been the ability to run guys off the three-point line. It's been one of those things that has really, really helped them this season as far as evening things out on the defensive end. Harrison Barnes is one of those guys, again, like I said, if he can get hot and he starts feeling himself, this is a guy who can put up a quiet yet loud, 18 to 25 points on your head unconsciously. Just keep that in mind. So that's just a guy to keep in mind. De'Aaron Fox is going to be the headliner. Luke Cornett defensively, we're going to attack him. That's going to be a headliner. Harrison Barnes, though, do not sleep. Last but not least, per usual, we are going to go into the comment section a little bit and talk about some of the things you guys had to say under last video. And honestly, I have been really enthusiastic about how active the comment section has been as of late. So thank you so much. 50 likes last video. We jumped up by about 10 to 12 subscribers off of one vid. And you guys are killing it. We're almost at 750 subscribers. There might be a way that we hit that 1,000 mark before We might actually hit that 1,000 mark before we end up getting to 2026. That's insane, and I really appreciate it. So let's start from the top. Karen Kidler, 834. You have started to creep up in this comment section a little bit more frequently there. A shout out to you. I've seen your name a lot more frequently as of late. You said, concerning J.I., you have to consider how much he changes the direction of the player charging toward the basket and J.I. turns him away. Sometimes he just steps out and the other player sees him and changes their mind and passes off the ball, which could result in stolen ball. It's not always about the numbers. Is that worth 15 mil is what Sharp T9E, which is also another repeat commenter in my comment section, responded by saying, but is he worth $15 million a year? And that would be my response. Is the theory of Jonathan Isaac is also what creates that aspect, right? But then why is he only playing 10 minutes a game? If the theory of Jonathan Isaac, because the way you describe Jonathan Isaac is the same way once upon a time, and even certain aspects, even now, how they talk about Rudy Gobert as a rim defender. That's how they talk about Victor Wembanyama as a rim defender. That's how they talk about Walker Kessler when he was healthy as a defender, as a shot blocker. They don't play 10 minutes a game. Actually, every player I just named is a starter. He makes starter money. Jonathan Isaac makes starter money. That's the thing I'm trying to kind of like make clear here, right? Like for clarity here, right? And I'm not doing this to be a jerk, because I like J.I. I really want that to be clear here. I like J.I., but I want you guys to understand, right? Oklahoma City Thunder center Jalon Williams comes off the bench for the OKC Thunder, who, by the way, have Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein as their two main starting bigs, right? Jalon Williams plays 18 minutes a game, averages 5.7 points, actually does shoot the three ball, by the way. This season he's struggling from beyond the arc, but he's a 37.6% three-point shooter on nearly 3 attempts per game, which is pretty okay, actually. And he's somebody who constantly is leading the league in charges taken, because he's making himself effective and available on the defensive end in a more unique way. And if you check his shot contest numbers, which the Oklahoma City Thunder's shot contest numbers across their entire roster are pretty high, because everybody gang contests on that team. There's no one contest man on any shot. There's always 2, maybe even 3. But if you check his shot contest numbers, like, he's pretty solid, right? Like, am I saying that Jalon Williams is better than J.I.? No, I'm saying Jalon Williams plays more than J.I. I'm saying Jalon Williams, in the minutes that he plays, which is almost double what J.I. plays, in an equally as talented, if not more talented, front court. Because I think we're all taking Chet Holmgren over Wendell Carter Jr. We love Wendell over here, but, like, be honest, right? And then, like, are you taking Goga Batadze over Isaiah Hartenstein? I think it's a debate. I think most would look at you crazy and just say Isaiah Hartenstein off the rip. But if you want to go that route and say that maybe Goga Batadze is better, I think it's at least a debate. Sure. But they have a more talented front court, yet Jalon Williams plays double the minutes J.I. does and is not nearly the rim protector that J.I. is. So why can J.I. only get on the floor for 10 minutes? If he's such a rim defender, if he's such a rim deterrent, where we're talking about him like the boogeyman around the basket, the way we talk about a Victor, the way we talk about a Rudy, the way we talk about a Walker, why does he only play 10 minutes on this team? We could use the rim protection. Everybody complains about Wendell Carter Jr. all the time. We could use the rim protection. Why does he only play 10 minutes? That's either a Jamal Mosley flaw or that's something wrong with Jonathan Isaac. You guys can decide that, but it's one of the two and nothing else in between. Next up, Dub L8, shout out to you as always, very active in the comment section per usual. Shout out to you. Your channel is one I look forward to listening to on a regular basis. Keep up the great work. Off subject, but something I noticed last night as I watched the pregame, I'm almost certain Paulo strained his groin due to the celebration of Bane's buzzer beater. He literally picks up Bane in an unnatural way, using muscles he normally wouldn't have used, and Bane's a big dude. As David Steele would say, is this anything? I'm going to have to go back and watch the tape on that one. I couldn't really tell you off rip whether or not that's truly a thing. We do have to remember that Paulo officially pulled his groin the next game, right? So those things can either be related or too far apart to really make sense of. So I'm not going to say that it's nothing, but I'm not ready to say that it's anything just yet. I would have to go back and look and really kind of figure that one out. That's a good eye by you, though, going back and spotting that, because that does create an interesting situation now. Nonetheless, regardless of how he hurt himself, unfortunately, the reality is we've missed Paulo Banchero for a handful of games, and I think most Magic fans who like Paulo Banchero would like to see him back on the floor as soon as possible. So that's really the big question here, more than anything. It's less of how he hurt it and how much longer you going to take, Paulo, because it would be nice to have you by the NBA Cup. Next up, Killer7260 says Wendell is one of the most effective rim protecting centers in the league. It's not just about blocks, brother. Opposing players hit about 45% on him. That's like fourth amongst centers. Plus has been on fire from three and has been a great offensive rebounder and even been good defending the perimeter. Y'all need to get off this man's back. And it says, somebody responded, Moore 77 said, 1,000,000%. People don't realize how much of an ideal big WCJ is. He is a strong post presence, physically excellent ability to switch 1 through 5, and shot blocking is average. But how many bigs in the league are shot blockers? We got one in WCJ. See, this is the funny part about this podcast, and I don't know if this is the first time that you've watched the podcast or listened. I'm not saying that disrespectfully, but I'm saying that to say I've said a handful. I've been in your seat. I've been in your seat, Killer7260, been on this podcast. Many can vouch. 888. You can vouch. You can vouch for sure, because you're somebody that's been here for a minute. Ephraim Bolden, a couple of my other repeat commenters. You guys have heard me say this before. It's not that I don't think we should. I don't think there's anything wrong with Wendell Carter Jr. this year. Is he an above average center at best? Yes, I think he's at least I think he's above average at best. Is Wendell Carter a top 15 player at his position? I think he's capable of at least being top 15 at the center position. And my viewpoint on it has been, for all those that are, the Wendell Carter Jr. haters, the one that want Goga Bitadze to play more minutes than him, or want Jonathan Isaac to play more minutes than him, or want us to move him for a more improved big like a Nikola Vucevic. Or if you can't get a Nikola Vucevic, you got to go find somebody who brings real rim protection to make up for losing it from Wendell Carter. And I've always said the same thing, guys. Who are you going to get? Who are you going to get that you don't have to trade real draft capital for, because you don't have it? We talked about it last podcast when we broke down that nasty James Harden trade, that they only have the 2031 pick that's available for them to trade because all their other stuff is out. And because of the Stepien rule, you can't be missing a draft pick in consecutive years, right? So they can't trade 2026 because they don't have their 2027 already. And they can't trade their 2029 because they don't have their 2030, right? So, they can only trade their 2031. Everybody wants to keep Jet Howard, but likely you would have to attach him to WCJ to be able to get an upgrade. So my question has always been, how do you upgrade WCJ truly without also really putting yourself in a negative position where maybe you don't even get a more upside player than Wendell Carter Jr.? So I'm in the same camp as you. Don't let whatever was said in the podcast. I'm not sure exactly which part you're referring to, but J.I. is an above average center at best. And that's fine. That's fine. And for those who want a better center than WCJ, I'm not saying we can't do better. Do I think Nikola Vucevic would be a great fit for this team as a post presence? Yes. Especially with the kind of defense that's around him that really helps, given the fact that he's a below average rim defender. So what he brings offensively, especially as a floor spacer, is a significant upside. But is it worth what you're going to have to trade for him to do it? Sending Wendell Carter Jr. back to the Bulls attached with a Jet Howard. Attached with a Jet Howard, maybe a second round pick. Do you have the scratch for that? I wouldn't do it. I like Vooch, but I wouldn't do it. But that's my point. So we're in the same camp. Ayo Loud, repeat commenter as usual. What's up to you, my G? Paulo and Bane both need the ball to be effective. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's totally facts. Paulo is one of them that I think needs the ball a little bit more. Bane is, I think Bane actually does his best off ball. My personal opinion. I know as of late he's been on the ball. His usage just shot up significantly, but I think he does better off ball. But I agree. They're the most effective when they have the ball in their hand. Efren Bolden, 7892. Shout out to you, my G. Jace gets anywhere he desires on the floor. He's a special talent. He would also bring floor spacing. I don't see the lie. I told y'all that I think Jace Richardson deserves minutes. Where he gets them from has always been the tricky part, especially when Paulo comes back. Tristan Da Silva and Anthony Black get bumped down to coming off the bench or some kind of capacity of now having to redistribute those point guard minutes because it seems like Jamal Mosley wants to play Tyus real bad. That's where it gets tricky. I think later on, Efren Bolden says Jace Richardson should be used more. His shot makes him more valuable than Tyus. Please give Jace some more second team run. He is a special watch. Again, you have to deduce how you really feel about Tyus Jones. I told y'all how I feel about him, but I also told y'all that based off the sample size, and it's a very small sample size, but based off the sample size, Tyus is not giving what he's brought in to do. And no one's asking Tyus to be a microwave scorer. We're asking him to be a table setter, and he struggles. He's struggled to be that. He's supposed to be a table setter and a floor spacer. And he hasn't brought either one of those things to the table so far this season. He showed flashes, but nothing of consistency, and that's worth at least having the discussion about. MM Moore 77, you had responded earlier on, but shout out to you for your comments specifically. Those trades are dumb. It shows national media has no clue on who Suggs and what the Magic are. See, here's the thing that's funny about that. Now, obviously, the site that I pulled it from was not like your ESPN or Bleacher Report or something like that. It was like a legit media blog company though, or whatever. But that's the thing, man, right? Like with these trades, like at the end of the day, you're trying to get clicks, right? That's let's be honest. That's the forefront of all of this. Is when you come up with these trade ideas, it's to jar the idea of like, what could this guy look like in a totally different jersey? Oh man. And with that being the case, sometimes it's more about the name value brought to these articles than it is the actual trade logic, right? And in these situations, right, like first of all, you're right. What you lose from Suggs and gain from Harden, who also could be a free agent very, very soon, by the way, as opposed to Jalen Suggs, who signed long term. Just throwing that out there. But in that situation, like it does discount what Jalen Suggs brings, both internally and externally. Internally being as what he does for the locker room, and externally being what he does on the floor and in the box score. Also specifically for what the Magic are, I think that's more pertains to the draft pick problem. They said to attach a 2026 first round pick to Jalen Suggs in exchange for James Harden and a second round pick. But the 2026 pick isn't even available to trade if you're the Orlando Magic because of the Stepien rule. Ball knowledge. That's a ball knowledge problem right there. Because the Stepien rule says that A, they traded that pick away anyway. And B, even if they had the 2026 pick, they would be in a bad position because anything after moving the 2026 pick, as we are seeing right now, which they already did with the Desmond Bane trade. But if, let's say they still had the 2026 pick, you're pigeonholing yourself for a aging James Harden to no longer have real draft flexibility until 2031. See, when you do that, and you do it for Desmond Bane, you say, okay, well, that guy's still young enough to grow with this group. You're going to give away your 2026 draft pick with this stacked class to the LA Clippers for James Harden, who's nowhere near where this Orlando Magic timeline is. It's a very bad representation of where the Orlando Magic are right now, and very bad business. The Desmond Bane trade makes more sense than that. I think a lot of us would agree. The Desmond Bane trade looks better than that. I think a couple of you guys actually said that in the comment section as well. Tony H 4513. Good grief. Whoever threw that trade out there would ruin this team. Suggs had 5 steals last night. Yes, he made a lot of bad plays and missed a lot of shots, but giving him up for a washed Harden will never happen. We value our guys too much, and rightfully so. Ja would be better as he's younger, but still a no-go. We good, brother. Totally agree. I mean, I basically just said it. Yeah, I don't think Harden's washed. He's actually the best player on their team right now, and the most effective, and still looks like an all-star. He's not washed yet, but for his age value for this team, doesn't make sense. Dutch Entertainment 4395. I wouldn't sign Harden even if he was a free agent. How much money we gotta give him? I'm just kidding, but understandable. Again, doesn't really meet the timeline. Nobody's trading Suggs and Howard for Harden. LOL, such a reach from Freak Mula second 78-2 or 782. It's a reach. I think it's a reach. That's what made it so weird. I mean, again, that's why we broke the trade down in real time, because it was like, what are you talking about? Jance01, another repeat commenter in my comment section. I've been a Mosley critic mainly about how we have been developing young players like Jason Jett. We should be more invested in their development. I mean, Jace is here for the next 3 years and we want him to be good, but yeah, he can coach, definitely, for sure. Development days are over. It's time to win, from Sharp T9E, who also later said, can't trust Harden. We've seen him quit on teams once he's ready to go. Harden, no show in the playoffs. Suggs is the best in those games. Teeter-totter on that one, double A. But at the end of the day, I do think that if we're talking about Harden, and Ed SO8 RG also says Harden is a party hardy fool. So everybody was not feeling the James Harden trade proposal, if you can't tell. And I'm not against it either. We literally, like I said, we broke it down real time for about 10 minutes. And we came to the conclusion, like, that doesn't make any sense. We have real ball knowledge individuals in my comment section. If you come on now. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, I don't know what else to tell you. This has been another edition of the Magic Latest Podcast. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that post notification bell so you always know when we're dropping new videos, so you can get into the comment section and be locked in with individuals like these, who real ball watchers, real ball knowledge individuals over here with the Magic Latest Podcast. I will see you guys again tomorrow, but until then, peace.